Everyone is ready. I'd like to welcome both the board and members. This is our official General Assembly session. This will be the online version, and hopefully we will have a chance in September to repeat this event with more in-person networking, so that you will get to have a chance to talk to the board, to board members directly. We have two things to do today. One is we will announce the results of the AmCham elections and name the board for 2020, 21, and 22. And then the second thing is that we will present with some board members some of the key factors that we're looking at that will determine both the size and the shape of the recovery. There will be lots of slides, so we're going to be pushing through it. The session will last till 10:15 this morning. I know some people may need to leave earlier. We will push through all the presentations, and so if you can stay, that's great. If you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and we will try to enable your mic either at the end of all the presentations or during the presentations themselves. So with that, if everybody's ready, we will get started with the board. So as you all know, we had elections in May. 80 members, 80 member companies voted. 299 votes were cast. We had 2 new members of the board elected and 7 re-elected. And I will name them during the course of the presentation. Mikhail Khor from the Alcron Hotel is continuing on the board for this year. Milan Schlapak from GE Aviation was re-elected. Václav Novotny from Biogen was re-elected. Sanjeev Suri from Zatishi Group was re-elected. Mikhail Nebetsky from Citibank was also re-elected. Violeta Luca from Microsoft is newly elected. Michel Perret from Carrier is re-elected. Mikhail Klemesh from HPE is continuing. Magdalena Socek from EY, also continuing. Eric Best from the Fleet Sheet, also continuing. Rebecca Groton from Avast, also continuing. Oliver Stuckey from Honeywell is elected for the first time. Mikhail Stachnik from Cisco was re-elected. Sorry. Andrei Krajicek from Wysoft is continuing. Radek Halicek from KPMG is re-elected. And Rainier Bogner from ExxonMobil is continuing. Yaroslava Rezlova from Manpower is re-elected. And Josef Koturba from Deloitte is continuing. So that is your board of directors for the 2021-2022 year. And as I said, we will have a chance in September, hopefully, to meet in person so that you guys can have a chance to talk to them directly. With that, we will start now the presentation on key factors. Several different board members will be presenting it. And as I said, if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the chat box and we will get to them. The first key factor is inflation, and it will be presented today by Mikhail Nebetsky of Citibank. Mikhail?
Good morning, everybody. I need to refocus. I'm sorry. I was on another call, so let me pause for a moment by one philosophical remark before I open. Thank you for re-electing me. The profile photo is like 2 years old, and I'm wearing bow tie. and I just realized that I haven't worn a bow tie for like 18 months already, and I'm not doing any better wearing a tie. So if you see me, I'm in t-shirt and I dress like hipster. So much to COVID situation, but dress code has deteriorated in fashion industry, and many things deteriorated during pandemic months. And one of the monsters in the cabinet is inflation for sure. It was not very much on the table during the worst months of the pandemic, but it has attracted a lot of media attention in the recent past. And I think it attracted a lot of attention for a very good reason, because it is something to factor in our post-COVID era and think about tackling the threat of inflation in a very serious and professional manner. Why inflation matters? I think it's pretty straightforward, because if there is a pressure on input prices, and we see it all over the place, starting with commodities and ending with even consumer products. Look at the lack of chips for automotive, etc., etc. Everything is more expensive now, because there is disruption of supply channels. There is a shortage of products in many industries in general. There is tons of money which people saved during pandemic month, and expectation is high that this money will be put into work, and all the delayed consumption and investments will kick in, and it's already happening. So if things you buy in your companies are more expensive, the question is, can you pass on to your customers? And the answer is maybe. Some people are successful, some fail. And in the end, the pressure on profitability is a very material component of the inflation debate. There is a high degree of psychology involved as well. I'm very much a fan of behavioral economy. So if expectations are that prices will go up, they will. And there is pressure not only on profitability but also on competitiveness. If we live in inflationary environment, then suddenly the prices are no longer as competitive as they could be, and more importantly, people start thinking about where they put their money, because if you have 3% inflation here and your best simple product us banks are offering to you is like 1.5, then something's wrong, and people start looking around. You see the real estate madness, which will be spoken about later. You see Bitcoin madness. You see people even, I don't know, my plumber asked me about Bitcoin, and we had like half an hour discussion about if it makes sense to invest into Bitcoin, and it was plumber fixing my toilet. You know. So asset allocation is also something very seriously to take into consideration, because it is potentially super risky game if people allocate their asset into seemingly high yielding but super high risk products. What we see in the Czech Republic is that even though the CPI decelerated in May a little bit, we are still talking about roughly 3% per annum of core CPI between May 2019 and May 2021. So 3.1 year on year is marginally higher than what Česká národní banka, the central bank, considers to be their tolerance band. You know, Their official goal is to keep inflation at 2%. Don't ask me why, but it is officially stated. They've gone higher to 3% tolerance band, and the inflation keeps attacking the upper level in the last many months. So we are not in terrible situation, but the situation is not rosy, and I do not expect the situation to improve significantly in the upcoming months. We need to watch what the central bank people are saying. I noted today in the morning that Mr. Mora of the bank board already spoke in favor of interest rate hike in June. I think it is likely. In fact, the market, if you go to treasury people, market priced in 7 hikes in the next for the remainder of 21 and 22. So December 22, the market priced 7 hikes at 25 bips each. Our approach, our opinion in the bank is a little bit more conservative, and we believe there will be 2 hikes in 2021 and 3 to 4 hikes in 2022. Let's say something very nice about Czech National Bank, and I keep saying it because unlike ECB, which is stuck in quantitative easing and negative interest rates forever, Czech National Bank has never proceeded with quantitative easing. It got negatively reflected on Czech koruna yields, but it's a different story. But Czech Central Bank still has all the classical ammunition to battle inflation if it goes out of their tolerance band, which I think will be the case for a couple of months maybe. So they can hike, they can come up with other measures. We'll talk about it later. But if we move what is our expected situation on inflation front in June 2021, I think the best case, and to me it is also a realistic case, is that we are talking transitory acceleration of inflation because everybody delayed consumption, everybody delayed investments, everybody saw a decline in sales, or almost everybody. Rohlik.cz is different scenario, but predominantly in the economy, everybody is ready to go full steam and start spending. So it will for sure get reflected in inflation, and it will spike later this year. We expect Czech National Bank to react with their strong language and their hikes, and we expect them to continue exercising quite a high quality and predictable monetary policy. So to me, inflation in the Czech Republic is something which can be controlled and will be controlled, and I believe it is transitory matter. However, Czech Republic is 10 million people, small open economy, and it gets massively influenced by the external world, be it European Union or the global economy. So one needs to look beyond Hobbitland called Czech Republic. But let's move on to worst case scenario, and it is that the doom and gloom scenario is basically stagflation, which I don't think is unrealistic to contemplate, not necessarily in the country, but perhaps Europe is very vulnerable to the situation that there is no growth in the couple of next years, and there is high inflation leading to complete economic devastation. It is not the most probable scenario, but it is not completely unrealistic scenario. But if we look at the Czech Republic, only our worst case scenario is similar to the global scenario, that there is a spiral of CPI growth that will lead to overshooting of the CNB targets and mega tightening of the monetary policy with all the macroprudential measures, with all the counter-cyclical stuff, hikes, fixing interest, FX rate, etc., etc. The graph below shows a historical evolution of CPI. The blue one is tradables, gray one is non-tradable, and the most important one is the black one, which is core CPI growth, which is basically CPI without some consumables like food, fuel, and energies, etc. And you see that it has gone in the last 2-3 years from below 2 to roughly 3%. We go next slide.
Yeah.
It is Josef.
Yeah.
So that's it from me. I could speak half of an hour more, but let's move on. And I'm happy to answer questions after the presentation is done. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Michal. Josef, would you like to talk on debt? Josef, maybe you're on mute.
Am I fine now?
Yes.
Lovely. Good morning. First of all, let me thank to Dr. Doom, who's depicted the possible negative future scenarios. I will be partially more optimistic, but not too much. If this is the most optimistic slide I'm showing. Basically, if you look at the national debt development, it is true that Czech Republic is still within a reasonable band. Czech Republic is the green second line from the very bottom. The only fiscally more conservative country in the sample is Estonia. For reference, I've shown 2 of the victims of last crisis, in particular, or 3 actually, Greece, Portugal, and Ireland. Greece is, as you would expect, at the very top, Portugal second, and Ireland being the third until 2015 is now basically almost in our neighborhood. I would, out of what is the lesson learned? Yes, COVID, no matter how smartly or stupidly we've spent the money on the budget, has made basically very similar dent in everybody's public finances, and actually Czech Republic was not exceptional, and certainly not at the top. These data are from third quarter 2020. What I would like to point out is the Irish curve, which shows that once they recovered from the crisis of 2009, and they were one of the worst hit countries in the world, you may maybe recall the highly politically incorrect acronym PIGS, which was Poland, which was Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. The only country of the PIGS. No, so sorry. Let's stay there. Let's stay on the previous one for a second. Okay. Ireland was the only one which did massive recovery of the public debt. One of the reasons why they succeeded was they were battling across the political spectrum against increases of corporate income tax not to undermine their unique position as corporate host. So I think, should we look for inspiration internationally? We should certainly look at Ireland. Again, after the crisis, we were slightly reducing debt as percentage of GDP, primarily because of rapid growth, not because of real reduction of debt. The second chart is a bit more worrisome. It shows the official prediction of the Ministry of Finance, and you can see that until 19, it looked very flat, and which was reasonable. Although in countries like not only Ireland but also Germany, the governments were producing surpluses, and they were actually rapidly reducing debt. But since COVID started, the debt is growing extremely fast, and for 2023, it's expected that there's no light at the end of the tunnel in terms of increasing debt. Now, why is it worrisome? Because many people say, okay, no public debt, nobody pays it anyway, it's like forever, which is true in a part. There's no reason why public debt should be at zero. The people who are saying you shouldn't have any debt, there's no particular reason for this statement. But the reason why higher level of debt is dangerous is explained at the bottom picture. This shows historical development of 10 years government bond. It's the U.S. Government bond, and I'll explain why I'm using U.S. It shows the interest over a period of. You're very fast. I mean, before I finish the slide, you always jump one slide ahead. Okay. Basically, the period we're living in today, i.e., that interest rates are close to zero, is historically highly exceptional. The reason why we have these extra low interest rate is only because the central banks all over the world are pumping money into economies in the form of open market or quantitative easing. They're buying out any paper, whether bond, private or public, and they're artificially pushing the interest rates down. That has a number of consequences. One is, for example, the bubbles at the market, because if you're saving your money for pension purposes, what can you do? Buy a government bond, which, you know, the short-term government bond pays you negative interest? Probably not. Shall you invest in shares? Well, but the PE ratios are already scarily high, and people are therefore seeking these alternatives, sometimes more and sometimes less crazy. Once this massive inflow of money causes inflation also of consumer prices, and that was Michal's point in the earlier presentation. The national banks will have to reconsider this policy. The interest rate will go up, and the high debt will start generating debt services, the interest payments, which will slowly diminish the ability of the state to finance public services. So to wrap it up, I hope for a future government which will look at Ireland as an example more than Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you, Josef, and apologies for the glitch with the presentation. The next presentation will be on housing prices by Blanka Bachkova, who's a member of our real estate council. Blanka?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. We at JLL, apart from looking at commercial market and advising our clients, we are also monitoring residential market. And so today I would share some notes of us how we see the residential market. So why housing prices matters? Well, this is everybody's interested in residential because everyone needs to live somewhere. And what we are seeing on the market recently, of course, is because of the rising prices, public service and young professionals, people who are starting their career, they are starting their families, they are forced to look for apartments at the borders or out of Prague. So that is one issue. And then, of course, that housing prices, as they are growing faster than wages, they are inflating wages. So I'm glad that I'm following presentation by Josef Kotrba and Michal Nebesky, because actually what are the main drivers? We can see that there are external drivers which are difficult to fight, and one of them is actually influx of money, money that are in the economy. And when we look at Prague, based on the latest figures by Eurostat, which were published recently, it shows that Prague has moved up in the ranking on the most wealthy regions, and now it's number 3 in Europe, in the EU, and it stands currently at over 200% of the EU average in PPS, in GDP per capita. So it shows that there is a lot of money in Prague, and the second driver is actually demography. Because Prague is attracting people, so it's not only birth rate, which is not that fantastic, but we have people who are moving to Prague. Either they are students who are staying, or people from abroad who are working here. And so, according to the official figures, Prague has 1.3 million inhabitants, but based on numbers from mobile phone operators, actually in Prague live about 1.5 million inhabitants. And according to the forecast by Czech Statistical Office, Prague's population is forecasted to grow by more than 9% by 2030. The second thing is that it's not only people that they are moving to Prague, but also the structure of household is changing. So of course, we have more singles living on their own. We have divorces. We have a number of households growing. There is a trend of growing households, and usually in ideal situation, one household means one flat. So there is another demand for living in Prague. In addition, Prague as a global tourist destination, we know that it's not these days. It was hit hardly, but when we took into account what was in pre-COVID times, then of course there was external demand also for so-called investment flats, which were rented to via platforms such as Airbnb. So we have at least two pressures on housing. One is money in economy, and that flats has become to be viewed as an investment product, and that people are investing their savings, and they because they see how prices has grown over the years. Based on our numbers, JLL numbers, in the last 5 years since 2016, we have seen that the prices has increased by 43%. And this is based on apartments which were available for sale at the time. So comparing this January to 5 years ago, the increase we registered was 43%. When we look at the balance of demand and supply, we see that annual supply 5-year average is over 5,700 apartments per year is delivered to the market, whilst demand, or how many apartments were sold, it's pretty in balance. It's 5,800. So there is not a great disbalance, but on the other hand, there is over demand, and this is pushing the prices up. So policy milestone to watch. Of course, this is a mortgage rate policy by Czech National Bank. We have seen that Czech National Bank was worried of overheating of the market, and they have introduced a number of restrictions to the market several years ago, 2017-18, and it had some effect on the market because we have seen number of sales went down year on year in these years. On the other hand, last year, because of there were worries of what a pandemic will cause to the market, the restrictions were lifted, and as interest rates were very low, there was a high demand for apartments. So it was a 3-year record in number of sales. So there is, of course, there are discussions about new building law, how it is going to affect construction, whether there will be more apartments available, because supply is viewed as one of the problems, and this is like one of the reasons why there is not enough apartments, and prices are going up. Then we are also monitoring some city initiatives, Prague's initiatives to venture into ready-to-rent development, which should somehow help to sort out the situation in a way if the city would be able to secure some apartments, which would they be renting to people who are from public sector or in need, then this could ease up situation for people who cannot afford to buy on the current prices, even if the mortgages were more favorable. And of course, then we have also noticed some initiatives by political parties who are coming with ideas like putting additional tax on second or third apartments in the ownership, which is now in the proposal. But yes, these are a mix of different initiatives, how the market or the government is trying to ease the situation. If I can ask for the second slide. Yes, so what is I have not put June 2022 because in our view, real estate is not moving that fast. And even if we do some changes today, it doesn't mean that it will be seen on the market so quickly. So we rather use outlook. And best case scenario, of course, is if the prices would not move up further, and there will be some increase of construction, which would put more apartments on the market and feed the demand, which is outstanding. And then another option is that now developers are looking into rental market, looking at other countries like as Germany, for example, or Scandinavia, where they are looking into ready-to-rent apartments. The question now is how they will be priced, what will be the rental level, whether it will be feasible for those young professionals or public workers to actually to rent these apartments. When I discuss with my colleagues, because now there are those sayings that millennials, they are not interested in buying, they are more interested in renting, they do not want ownership, they want experience. Anyway, when I have a discussion with someone and I ask them, they usually say they want to invest into an apartment. So we will see, because it will also include change of mentality. And as we know that here we were very much focused on ownership rather than being in. We have we have perceived it as being it is more secure. It is more secure for living, and also is a good investment. So then I was speaking about cities, if they would be able to create some kind of ownership either on their own or in some cooperation with developers. And then it would mean some back to regulation, but of course it has to be done properly, so we are not back to what was before. And when I look at worst case scenarios, of course, so there are many options that the prices will continue to rise steeply. And then, of course, there will be lack of available and affordable flats, which mean that people will continue to seek their living outside of the city borders, which means there are additional costs on for infrastructure that city or the region has to build invest into public transport, build roads, and invest into schools, which is not very good if we already have it here in the city. And or the scenario which actually happened after 2008, when we had too many apartments and there was lack of demand, which was when the market was stuck for several years. So that would be all from my side. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Blanka.
Okay.
Now we'll move to workforce availability, and we have two presenters there. One is Michelle Pare from Carrier, and the second is Yaroslava Reslerova from Manpower. Michelle and Yaroslava?
Question, and I will start with few
Great.
numbers. I hope you can hear me well because my connection is today a bit weird. We were looking at the current situation in the labor market, which is very, I would say, interesting from the point of employers. We see that the unavailability of the workforce in the Czech market is increasing. I think it's partially due to COVID because people are now very much careful about their jobs, about their lives. They don't want to change. And we see that the demand of employers is increasing constantly. I think we can see in coming months still some decrease of the unemployment rate, which is a bit scary. And this will be a part of our worst scenario, as we can come to the point that we will not see any available workforce, and it can somehow block the economic development. So let's see what happens. We were putting in here a bit of analysis. How is the situation as of today? The data are from from May. We have much more open vacancies officially written in, officially recorded in labor offices than job seekers in total number. And let's say honestly, those 285,000 people are not real job seekers. Most of them are not looking for a new job. So we are seeing kind of the possible disruption in here. We know as well that the number of vacancies being statistically counted through labor offices is not the total amount of open jobs on the country market. So it seems a bit scary. Nevertheless, Manpower Group was publishing last week a new overview of the trends employers are seeing for the Q3 of this year. And we saw that there will be still increasing demand for talent, for candidates. The majority of employers would like to hire new people, but they are a bit, let's say, pessimistic about where they can find them. Talent shortage, kind of we did a short as well question about talent shortage. We asked Czech employers if they have difficulties or not to find available workforce. And 60% of them told us that they have long-term difficulties to fulfill their vacancies. I think this trend on the labor market is continuing to increase. We saw it first in 2017, 2016, and it's still increasing. And if we are looking at the trends in general, it is sure that the demographic trend in the Czech Republic will not change. There will be not more Czech population. There is still a lack of newborn babies in the country, and working age population will decline. So definitely there will be a shortage in the market which will develop. And there are some let's say, potential how to fulfill this gap with maybe well-structured and well-managed immigration from Eastern countries, non-EU countries, and maybe from different point of view, if, and this is just a bit of, vision, if the economy will transform, if it will be not anymore so much production economy, a bit more of service-driven economy, there should be a different setup in the market. But let me add two more trends. I think all of you are aware. The average salary in the Czech Republic increased year over year by 1,000 crowns something. So now we are at 35,000 on average, but 2/3 of the working population are not having this salary. And at the same time, the salary level doesn't mean so much because the prices or the price of the Czech wages for employers are still quite high compared to what kind of economy, what we have, what is the structure of the economy. So I strongly believe if we will be able, politics, government, whoever it will be, with the new government, if we will be able to move this high taxation a bit low for the lowest level of wages, then the Czech labor market should be more dynamic and more flexible. From two other trends, we put it in the presentation as important. I would say that structural changes which were due to the COVID transition from COVID affected industries didn't change so much the major trends in the Czech labor market. And what is the most important thing, that the manufacturing industry are heavily missing the workforce. And this is not anymore about so much low levels of wages, because the minimum wage, which is Social Democratic Party working a lot with, is not any more significant at all in majority of industries. So those are the major trends. A bit scary, I would say, because the price of wages is high and will probably not decrease, and that the majority of the working population is not having this average wage, means that they will not be motivated to move more flexible across country to find new jobs, and that employers may be stuck in some level of development because they will not be able to invest, seeing that they will not have available workforce. Michel?
Yeah, thank you, Jaroslava. Yes, in terms of policy milestone to be watched over the coming month. Well, first of all, whatever remains, we complete phase out of anti-COVID employment policy is a critical one. Obviously, reopening of borders, I would say on a sustainable basis, not to go to close it and reopen. We need to reattract immigrated workforce which left the country due to COVID. On top of that, we need to attract additional workers, like was explained by Jaroslava. It's clear that there is shortage of operators. So immigration policy will be definitely a topic of the agenda. And then a little bit more long-term, but if we don't start tomorrow, long-term might be very long. There's two items, which is one about education, including both vocational training, which the young people to connect to companies, to connect to the real world of work, and then university education, technical education, which is a critical factor for success for manufacturing, for manufacturing companies. And then digitalization of production is definitely an investment that has to be considered, and definitely the Czech government can help, and the EU funding can help as well. Next slide, please. So how we see two scenarios. One of them is, well, a reshaping of the economy, from my viewpoint, is a rebalancing between manufacturing and services. Some activity have been highly impacted by COVID, and some workforce of that activity moved to manufacturing or to warehousing, to other activities. So reshaping of the economy is definitely a point of attention. Second one is, I mentioned already about reopening of border, but more importantly about immigration policy, about the process to get new foreign workers into the country, and definitely the administration can help on that process. We mentioned already investment into digitalization, and we mentioned also the fact that what we call fringes, which is tax on payroll, is quite high in Czech compared to neighbors. I mean, a neighbor, whatever, is Poland or Hungary. So it's something that needs to be paid attention to remain competitive, to remain for the competitivity of the country. Well, worst case scenario, we clearly stated that there is a shortage of workforce, not only in manufacturing, but might be also in the industry to some extent. If this shortage remains, obviously that will trigger wage inflation, which will link to the conversation about we had on inflation a few minutes ago. So we can definitely have wage inflation due to this lack of supply. And well, there is a risk. I mean, the Czech economy relies a lot on manufacturing. I mean, more than 20% of GDP, which is significant, is in manufacturing. And there is a lot of adjacent services to this to manufacturing activity, which is also a big portion of the GDP. So obviously there is a risk that these assembly lines can start to move to other countries in the region or to other parts of the world, which are more competitive from a salary standpoint, and which are also more where workforce is available, to make it sure. That's it. Weston?
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jaroslava. The next presentation is on digital skills, and it'll be presented by Violetta Luca from Microsoft. Violetta?
Thank you, Weston. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be with you. So we put together a couple of thoughts with respect to digital skills, and I believe every one of us knows why it matters and why it is a topic which is important and would make the difference in the future. I know that at this point, and also thank you for sharing these insights, we do face a shortage in the workforce. But looking at the long term, there is an estimation that by 2030 up to 1.1 million jobs in Czech Republic will be automated. And our learnings from Microsoft is that really we would need to make a plan for upskill and reskill the people and to prepare ourselves to have an increased agility of our workforce in order to stay competitive in the long term. Having the fact that there is a high level of digitalization in many industries and verticals, actually, what we see is that at the moment there are not enough experts in Czech population with advanced ICT technologies, especially in the age group 25 and 54 years old. And there is a difference compared with technological champions, the digital champions, according to McKinsey studies in the last 3 years. They did a couple of them. And we are having actually the gap between us and the champions in this field. It's 46% in this age group. Another important data point is that 60% of our population in the age group of 16 to 74% has basic ICT skills in Czech Republic, while in countries which are more like digital champions, the penetration is 10 points higher. And given the fact that, you know, more and more services and products are being delivered using digital channels, the ability to also create a base for our, let's say, group population having the basic skills to use these services is one important point going forward, considering the risk, exposure, privacy, and overall their well-being. The last data point on this is related to ICT professionals, the number of workers actually working in ICT in Czech Republic is 5.6% at this point. In the youngest actually age group, while if we are looking at people older than 45 years old, then this group weighs only 2.7%. And this may be a challenge in the long term, given the fact that there is the increased need for ICT professionals in order to support the digitalization initiatives ongoing now, but also planned and foreseen for the future. And actually, this point can be linked with the upskilling comment I made before. There are a couple of milestones to watch. One is to use the use of EU funds for digital skills programs. And I would say that the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience represents a super strong source for enabling the digital skills at scale in Czech Republic. Then the commitment of local companies to invest in their employees in order to keep the competitive advantages of their knowledge and capabilities, and of course of their digital skills. In order to have a high-skilled society, we need to have a strong partnership between private and public sector. And of course, we would need to look at how education system is being enhanced. I think the last year showed that the system is not fully resilient. But in the same time, it showed that in times of need, there is quite a big flexibility and agility of the people in this industry. If we move to the next slide, given the fact that the digital skills, it's a topic for rather medium and long term, I would say that maybe the June 22 itself is not the, let's say, the most relevant timing. But I would say that what is important is that in 1 year from now, in the best case scenarios, is to really have in place in Czech Republic a programmatic, a systematic approach in the investment of the digital skilling, driven by the government, but also enabled by the private sector for different customer groups, for different age groups, targeting equally the citizens at scale with digital skills, but also targeting the ICT professionals and deepen on the knowledge on certain technologies like AI, for example. So really having a system of learning in place for Czech Republic, which is adapted to the current needs, because COVID really transformed the way we work, the way we interact, and also the way we will be competitive in the long run. And then, of course, the worst case scenario would be opposite, to really not being able to influence and to have in place such a clear and programmatic plan to drive the digital skilling at scale in Czech Republic. And from this perspective, we will rather accumulate more points in lagging behind more advanced countries in this respect. And with this point, I would move to digitalization, which is very much linked with the digital skills topic. If Weston, can you help me with the next one? And again, it's a very obvious why digitalization matters, because it's really a key engine in our view for recovery and revitalization of the economy, helping the companies to really recover, become more resilient in the long run, reimagining their business model and driving business growth. If we are looking at the current trends, according to Digital Economy and Society Index, DESI, the Czech Republic is ranked on number 17 out of 28 countries. So actually we are in the middle of the rank, which is better than, of course, the countries at the bottom, but definitely showing a perspective for improvement and for growth. If we look at the use of e-government services in Czech Republic, this is quite low. Less than 50% of citizens aged between 16 and 74 years old access public services online, compared with 75% of citizens accessing those services in developed countries. I would say that given all the legislative measures taken in the last 2 years with respect to digital identity, with respect to access to information.
So, Miro, prosím tě, máš čas?
Sorry. Any question, or I suppose not. So we made great steps, but still is quite a long way to go. And actually, there is a growing need to increase basic digital skills for all workers by reskilling and upskilling, as we discussed. And our learning, looking at worldwide trends, is that the average lifespan of skills is less than 5 years today. And this is why the need for, reskill and upskill in the industry is really, really high. If we look at the policy milestones to watch, definitely there is the legal and regulatory framework for digitalization and for cloud enablement. We know that we did quite a huge work in the last couple of months on this topic, and I would say the journey is not over. Then really being able to support ICT talents and building strategies and implementation to really support, let's say, the increase of the number of experts in Czech Republic on ICT, as discussed. And if we go forward, how let's say, the best scenario would look like in 1 year from now, moving for the next slide, is really to have in place and to leverage also the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience. So government to become both an enabler of the digitalization journey by creating a modern public system and policies and infrastructures. Also enabling lighthouse, let's say, transformation stories in Czech Republic, and being a catalyst for the digital economy by digitization their own services and platforms to the benefit of the citizens and economy, society at large. And of course, the worst case scenario would be not advancing on the e-government services, and many businesses would persist in remaining non-digital. And here I would make a comment that even though the crisis proved that there is not such thing as 100% business resilient in front of a crisis, it showed that companies with, let's say, strong digital landscape, strong digital approach, made them to be more effective in dealing with the crisis and being able to keep their employees engaged, connected, empowered, and also connected with their customers. So it's not really a question, it's a way forward to have the digitization in place for them. And then also a worst case scenario would be to really have a low level of digital skilled employees, and then impacting on different streams like limited innovation, weakening the country competitive advantage, attractiveness for the future, and so on. Thank you. If any questions.
Thank you, Violeta, and welcome to the Czech Republic, and welcome to the AmCham board. And we promise that you won't have to do twice the work of other board members in the future. But thanks for both of your presentations. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and sorry for being late today.
We'll go on. The next presentation is by our other new board member, and it's on the digital economy, warehouse automation. Oliver?
Yes, hello.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Oliver
so
Stoll from Honeywell.
do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So thank you as well for being elected to the board. So I hope to have a thrilling time in the next 2 years together. I'm talking about a little bit about warehouse automation. I mean, everybody, I mean, we are all consumers, so we have seen COVID accelerating consumers going online. I mean, the online sales of EU SMEs went up by 100 billion euros year over year over this COVID period. You can read that in certain articles, and that drove the need to automate warehouses more. Now, Czech Republic has a potential thanks to system engineering and embedded systems legacy, not only to serve as a hub for such warehouses, where we have quite a number of warehouses in this country, but also especially in Brno to serve as a major developer and exporter of digital warehouse technologies. I mean, warehouses need to get much more automated and let's say less person intensive, and actually transport goods faster, sort them, load them, unload them from vehicles, and so on. So that is a big trend. I mean, a lot of warehouses have been built or started to be built in EMEA as well. I mean, if you read the press, you might have read that Amazon is building several warehouses in Europe, and so they are also talking, all these bigger companies in the consumer market are talking naturally to the providers of such technologies on automation of these technologies. So this is a big area. The company I'm working for, Honeywell, is also involved in this. We have grown a large team in Brno of more than 100 engineers just within 1 year now, and we'll be working in that area. So next page, please. I mean, the best case scenario is very simple. I mean, it is more food for thought, this area, to mention this, and I was asked to keep this very short. So growth in automated warehouses, either it grows even faster than the anticipated growth to $53 billion in 2024, and the investment will be reflected in our area because we are part of it. Several companies are working in that area in Czech Republic, as we do. Or naturally, it could be that this growth is a bit slower than planned. They plan a 13.7% CAGR per year, and that mainly driven perhaps due to the current supply chain disruptions we see all over the globe, and that could have some impact and delay investments in areas, especially in the Brno area. So that's all I wanted to talk about. It's more like I wanted to initiate some thought about that. I mean, warehouse technology is a huge area of growth. Automate warehouses using artificial intelligence, using special mechanical, let's say, technologies to be developed. This is a huge area. Yeah, where we as a company also heavily investing. Thank you. That was already it.
So thank you, Oliver. And again, welcome to the AmCham board.
Thank you.
The next topic is tourism and RevPAR, and Michal Chor from the AmCham Hotel will present. Michal?
Good morning to everybody. My focus will be development of hospitality or hotel industry, in particular in Prague. What we use as a measure, as a common indicator, is RevPAR, which is multiple of average rate and occupancy. and it indicates it's widely used as a benchmark model for the performance of hotels or destinations. What we see as an outcome of the crisis is that the position of Prague, all of the destinations in Europe have been declining, but truth of the matter is that the position of Prague has deteriorated faster than the neighboring capital cities like Bratislava, like Warsaw, like Budapest, Vienna, etc. We are currently operating at roughly 10% of 2019, despite the restrictions being eliminated. The hotels, they run occupancy at around 13 to 14% and average rates 1,800 crowns. The truth is that there is still about 20% capacity not being put back on the market. And the question is whether this capacity will come back and at which stage. The second issue that we are facing is that even if the hotels which currently operate would want to operate at full capacity, they are not able to. Because simply there is not enough labor. And I guess if we would want to have the labor back, we would start competing. We'll have to start competing with the likes of Rohlík's, etc. So I think what we are going to see is even higher volume of pressure on the staffing, on the labor cost itself. In terms of our current situation, we are witnessing the municipality deploying promotion called V Praze jako doma, which is driven towards residents of the Czech Republic, which we perceive as not very effective way of promoting low-cost tourism in the destination and reinforcing discounting models. In exchange, we would be happy if Prague would take the example of the likes of Budapest and would really deploy professionally run digital marketing campaign on a big scale, targeting exactly the kind of customers that we would like to see in the future in the city. We would love to see a regulation in terms of short-term accommodation. In order to become more effective and visible in the markets, we would actually appreciate introduction of increase of the room tax, which would help us to finance promotions and or projects, infrastructural projects, which would increase visibility or effectiveness of the destinations, expansion of the Congress Center, etc. So the best case scenario, we would see by the end of 2022 occupancy levels at around 65–75%, and the average rates to drive around 60% of 2019. And the worst case scenario is as you can see, 45–55% occupancy and the rates at around of 50–60% of last year. Of course, there will be another worst level of case scenario, which would be a return of different mutation of the virus. And in that case, we would be running 10% occupancy. That's all from me. Thank you very much. In case of questions, I'm here.
Thank you, Michal. We'll go on now to the office catering index, which is a proxy for the number of people who will return to work on a daily basis in major municipal areas. And that will be presented by Sanjeev from Satishi Catering, or Satishi Group. Sorry, Sanjeev.
Thank you. Thank you, Weston. I guess in the interest of time, because we're getting very close to the end, I will go pretty fast on this one. I do not have industry-wide data to back this up, so we are using our data and speculating into June 2022. And given the present situation, you know how that speculation is. But we're using retail and hospitality, and the measure is how many people are in the office. We feel strongly that the hybrid model will continue. Obviously, it'll be more for the highly paid IT and management and finance, etc. And to very quickly get to the best and worst case scenarios, I think the best case scenario would be when people are at least about a day or a day and a quarter, maybe a day and a half in home office. And the worst case scenario would probably be if there is any next wave, etc., and there are more restrictions. And probably this will go up to 3 days, and it will get to the present level, which is 2 days in the office and potentially 3 days at home. So we are hoping to move quickly towards the best case scenario, but even that means at least a 20 to 25% drop in the people who would be on an average in the office every day compared to 2019. Whereas if we look at a 3-day or 2.5-day home office, you're looking at a 50 to 60% drop in the number of people. So that's my piece. Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, Sanjeev. And the final presentation for today is on business R&D investment, and it will be done by Milan Šlapak of GE Aviation.
Okay, thank you, Weston. Can you guys hear me okay? I had some issues. Okay, super. So I'll go fast as well. So R&D, why is it important? I think the COVID crisis highlighted, why R&D is important. And whenever I talk to companies or potential business partners, I always ask, hey, do you have your own product, right? Do you have your own product? Do you have your R&D? Do you drive your own innovations? Or are you working for somebody else? Because if you're working for somebody else and you produce against their print, against their know-how or IP, basically the only thing that you do, you're selling your time, right? You're selling your capacity. And whenever there's a crisis, what happens is that your customers are being very rational, and they are considering, hey, I got to protect my labor force. I got to protect my capacity. So they do for backsourcing or insourcing, if you will, or they start looking for alternative lower cost options. So we saw it in Czech Republic. We saw it in a bunch of other countries. The guys who were really doing a low value added stuff, they had no R&D, no innovations. They lost the volumes, right? They lost the business. Whereas if you have your own R&D, you generate the know-how, you generate the IP, and in that case, you're really relevant as part of your supply chain or part of your business families, and so on and so on. So that's why it's important. The more R&D, the more innovation you apply to differentiate from the other products or services, the more premium you can typically charge, and the higher margins you're generating. So there's a direct correlation between the value added and the R&D content or IP content in the product. Okay, so that's the importance piece of it. We did some benchmarking, and thank you very much, Weston, for sharing the data. So what is the country's percentage spent of the total EU spending on the research? Czech Republic is at 2%. Is it a lot? Is it a small number? Yeah, we just checked the top 3 spenders. Germany 34%, France 17%, and Italy 9%. So just these 3 countries, right? So let's say a little bit less than 10% of EU members generate 60% of the overall spending on R&D. So that's pretty amazing, and that's our competition. That's kind of gives us the message. And no wonder that these 3 countries are really considered to be best in class and really the leaders in aviation, aerospace, or automotive, when you really have some high value added intellectual property and expertise involved. So what can we do about it? Maybe Weston, jump to the next slide, please. What can be done about it? If you want to see some dramatic changes, one question is there a decent R&D ecosystem of potential partners. Because today, if you do high-end R&D, rarely you would spend your own money or your money only, right? To spend tons of millions of dollars, you would like to have some eventually JV partners or revenue sharing partnerships, etc., etc. And you want to do it somebody who is ideally in your neighborhood. So there's always a question: is there a potential R&D ecosystem in the country where I can do this? Two, is there a sufficient infrastructure? Test cells, whatever, experimental facilities, right? Is there an infrastructure where I can really do this R&D infrastructure, this R&D activities? And the fact is that there was quite a good progress in Czech Republic a few years ago, but it stopped. We don't see any additional stimulus done by the government or by the universities. It's really the private business who is doing it. So is the R&D ecosystem. Then I think Jaroslav and Michel talk about the skilled labor force, right? You need engineers, you need experts, whether it's IT, whether it's digital related or artificial intelligence, or just a pure engineering, aviation engineering, you name it. That's what if you have a lack of it, and we do in Czech Republic, it also slows down this R&D expenditure and new programs. Funding, how the external funding is done, what are the KPIs, what behavior it actually drives today. Does it motivate universities to do to publish studies, to publish impact reports, etc., or does it really do a real R&D that can be translated into the product features that could be marketable and commercialized later on? So those are the three pillars. I don't see a major improvements there. So I think that the Czech Republic would still remain around this 2.5% of the overall EU spending on R&D. But I think that's also part of our role to keep the pressure on the government, keep educating and sharing the best practices with the guys who have a chance to change some of the governmental decisions and policies. Okay, that's all.
So thank you, Milan, and thank you for everyone for sticking around for all of the presentation. Those are the key factors that the AmCham board is going to be addressing, and our councils and committees over the next months. What are the next steps? Tomorrow, we are going to have a discussion with the Prime Minister at 4 p.m. Several of these issues will be addressed. So if you haven't registered for that yet, please join us. In July, the AmCham board is going to be meeting to set a fall agenda. We recognize that there are elections coming up, but I think particularly this year, there are decisions and actions that need to be made by the government, particularly regarding the EU money, that need to be made without the standard 3-week pause, 3-month pause for elections. In September, as I said, we'll be starting again to meet, well, hopefully again to meet in person, and we will be addressing some of these issues with the government and in between businesses. So we're looking forward to your response. If you have any and participation in those activities, if you believe that we're missing some factors that we should be discussing, please let us know and we will include them. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for coming today and wish you a good summer. We will send you the material by email, the presentations today. And as I said, have a good summer and a safe summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.